and then there will be a record of it too. So, so now I'm broadcasting. I'm on air live if anybody's following me. So now what I'm going to do is go and screen share. In this case, I'm going to screen share what's showing up on my screen. I could go into this application window, and if I had my Google slide presentation open, I'd be just presenting that and talking to that. But right now for this class, I do this, share that. And now, of course, got to minimize this because that was what was on top of this thing. So now I'm doing a live presentation, and you would be too. So, okay, let me see what's going on here now.
Mine says ready in 24 hours.
Same thing. Okay, so get it started and. Yeah, this getting going.
Yeah, I got mine.
Yours is working?
No.
Oh, the same thing. Oh, that's interesting. And does that work for you? Okay, yeah.
It's right.
Will I now? Yeah. Does it let you?
No. It does in my ear.
Okay. Okay, we'll use one. 769, 752.
Mine's really taking a look.
Or you want to chat?
Enable live streaming, yeah.
Are they fixing some gear?
Yep, so you can do that. You just gotta verify again, text you a code.
That's you that.
Okay, well then, yeah, I might want to give it a minute because I think she's doing it too. And if they get kooky about it, they might say, hey, how come so many people are coming from this one place? They're trying to set up a scam. Okay, I think, Amber, this would be yours, 285854.
I just submitted mine.
Okay, so hang on for a minute. Okay, so yours will be 721782.
7172.
Wait, what was that?
Wait a minute now.
Congratulations.
I gotta find my text.
And it said ready in 24 hours.
Still, yeah. Yeah, so do that and then it'll be,
Use your phone. Okay.
yeah, use your
I'll
phone.
send you on a code.
Okay, Amber, I think yours was, wait. Huh. Eh, I'm getting too many things going here. Amber, which one are you sending it for? Because I think they sent me a code for your Microsoft account, right?
It's my YouTube account.
Okay, you might have to do it again because I got one for. Just wait. Okay, no, here it is. 285854. Good. Yeah, so they do that just so that people can't set up scammy stuff on here all the time, which happens all the time, as you know. So, good, people signing into Skype. Lily, where's Lily? Lily's not here. Lily's on Skype. Okay, well, I better do my attendance then while we're at it. So I need a column right, 23rd, and Sheena's here, yes. Stacy's here, yes. Heather's here? Heather's here, yeah. Albertine's here. Lily's here, she's in the online. Janelle's here, yes. Haley's here, yes. Myrna's here, yes. Amber's here, yes. No Liz. Lorna's here, yes. Anita's here, okay. So just, well, she might come soon. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? Hey, this is too small. How do you make this bigger? How do you zoom it? Well, there's a few ways to zoom it. So yeah, there's a little icon right in this URL bar. What's another way? So go Control plus. The simplest way that I remember doing it. So, but there's probably a few different ways. You can actually go into this Chrome control bar and see here, there's a zoom control here. Then you can make it bigger or smaller depending on what you need. There's a zoom control in this thing too that lets you go minus, plus, 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 plus. Or as I say, Control plus or Control minus is the same deal. All right, so we're going to, I just wanted to review a few things about video, and that's where we started, of course, with the live broadcast. And you know, as I said, once you get this set up and get it going using the Google Hangout and just starting a live event and broadcasting your little presentation, your presentation for the Pakuchka presentation you're going to do. So the slideshow, basically, you're going to just start a slideshow and start narrating it and recording it in a live event. When you're done, click end, stop broadcast, and it automatically records it to your YouTube account. Get the embed code, put it on the page for the class. Easy 20%. Easy 20%, which would put you well over the mark into 100, right? 100 territory, which is where we all want to be. Which is easy to do. You just got to do it. It's got to be something there. So again, just to tell you what I'm looking for when I'm going to go do the final assessment here of everybody here, this is what I'm looking for, your blog, where you've added a daily account. I'm looking for, I think we've got, how many classes did we do altogether by the end? 14 or 15 or something like that. So I'm going to be looking for 15 entries. I'm going to be looking for some notes, some, you know, what we did and what you got out of the class. And I want to also know a little bit, I want to see a little bit of reflection. What do you think about this? Not just the notes down there, but did you go back and look at this and think about how it affected you or affected possibly your teaching, your career, or how you might use it, or how it might be useful. So reflection, and that's probably one of the better ways I know of anchoring learning. And again, this is part of theory, and this is part of my pedagogy, is that reflection reinforces learning. So if you just learn it once, that's fine. But if you learn it, are exposed to the information, but then go back and reflect on it, that's what makes it stick in your head. That's what makes you learn. So again, all theory based, but okay. So I also want to do a little quick refresher on Screencastify, just make sure everybody remembers how to do that. So what I'm going to do is just go open another tab here, and I'm going to go open my presentation, my slides presentation, and this is what you're going to want to do, right? So here's the one that I created. I'll open this, and I'm going to go into the present mode. So I don't want to be in full screen quite yet because I got to turn on the Screencastify. So I'll turn on Screencastify, and it's going to ask me, what do I want to record? Microphone, yes. It's a microphone on my device, and again, you won't be able to do it on these things because you won't have a microphone on there. And then webcam, well, I don't care. I don't really want the embedded webcam, but I could. Maybe I'll leave it there just for fun. Now I'm going to record it and say, yes, this is the screen that I want to show, because I'm going to switch it and do a full screen presentation. So I'm going to square this one, and now go to 3, present. 2, 1. Now I'm doing my presentation, my Pakuchka presentation, and I'm going to be speaking 20 seconds worth of content. I'm going to be describing what's on the slide. I remember I built my Pakuchka presentation to be change slides automatically every 20 seconds. Remember how we did that? We changed that little piece of the code in there, the embedded code. So, well, of course I got to play it, of course, but then I go through each one of the slides. Do my present, 20 seconds a slide, click, 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 click. And then when you're done, exit. The escape button usually exits any of the full screen stuff that you're doing, and then go back into Screencastify and stop sharing. Screencastify.
Now I'm doing my presentation.
And now, so it's captured that presentation that I did. Now I just have to process it. It's going to be uploaded to Google Drive, one place as possible, but also if I go into here, I'm going to see it. I'm going to be able to see that I have the option to upload it to YouTube, which is probably the simplest thing to do. Upload it to YouTube. Got to make sure it's on your channel, and then once it's on your channel, then I'm going to upload it, and I'm going to go over once it's processed, and it usually doesn't take very long. So if I go over now to my YouTube channel, I should be able to see on my channel this event. So I want to go to my dashboard and find all of my videos. So this is the one here. It's coming.
Now I'm doing my presentation.
So amazingly fast using Screencastify. So then I'm going to go down here and go to the share function, grab my embed code, check my display widths and heights, right? Because I want to make sure that this shows up on the screen, you know, in a reasonably good format, not some little squinty little thing, but, you know, something that fits adequately. Grab my code, Control C, go back to my blog, the page, and this is what I started to say. This is, I want to see this in a page at the top here as well. So when you create this, you'll have to go back to your dashboard, find a page, new page, call this my presentation or my pedagogy or whatever you want to call it. Make sure you're switched into the HTML editor, and then paste that code that came from YouTube, and then publish. Now go back and view blog, and it should show up here as one of the, well, you'll probably have to link it up here. I won't link on this here because I already have one called that same thing, but if I check this off, then it's going to show up on my toolbar on the top. So easy. Anybody wants me to walk through the steps with them individually, I'm happy to do that too. So, but that again, I started to say this, and this is what I'm looking for on your blog. When you're done here, I'm going to look for those entries every day, and then I'm going to look across the top here. I'm going to want to see the lesson plans, and I want to see that you're using MindMeister, that you've used your embedded MindMeister to plan your lessons. And then for each of those lessons, I want you to have an individual page here that has your example that you've created for the lesson. So when you created a lesson for using maps, I want an example of the map that you used, embedded on a separate page on the top of your blog so that I can find it easily. Same thing with the podcast. So if you created a lesson with the podcast, what were we working on yesterday? Who was working on reciting? Oh, Edith, we were looking at this podcasting, getting your students to recite O Canada and recording it. So then I would expect to see that built into your lesson, of course, but then on the podcast page on your blog, I would expect to see a little audio recording of a recitation of O Canada. So same thing with a video lesson. I want that to show up here and embedded on your web page. Same thing with your idea for collaboration, whether that's going to be a document or a slideshow or a MindMeister or whatever, something to indicate an example. And for this, probably you have to use something like maybe a Google Doc, if that's what you're going to use to set up a collaborative lesson with your students. You're going to do it in a Google Doc, well then embed your Google Doc on there. And your Google Doc might even include some instructions to your students how to use this. So, and remember we had that little issue with embedding a Google Doc. the embed code that they give you on a Google Doc is squinty again, little squinty. So you're probably going to have to find an iframe. So by the time you've done all that, I'm going to be quite confident that you are technologically competent and happy to give you an A plus if I can, A plus plus if I can. So, all
Can
right.
you go over the criteria, what you want? I know there's the ICT continuum, but like on my Meister, you have like your lessons.
Okay, yeah, the
you
lesson
have,
plans.
like, your podcast, your maps, but then off of that, what's branched off?
Okay, so again, we use the template that we got from MindMeister for lesson planning, right? When you set up this podcast, and I'll go to the sort of the main screen one of here, the bigger featured one. Show full map. Yeah, so we created a map. All of your lessons are going to be on one map because you only have 3 maps in the free account, right? So put them all in one map. Within this one map, you're going to have the 4 different lessons that you're going to plan. So for example, we were just talking about here, the podcast lesson. So the podcast lesson then will have these elements in it. And if you set it up using as we started off doing this, using the MindMeister template, these things are all in it. So we just, and again, this was, MindMeister created these templates based on feedback that they got from teachers all over the world. So these are things that actually teachers use. So
Where do you find that? Like objectives?
yeah. So objectives, prerequisites, resources, and notes are the sort of the 3 main categories of things on there. And where did I find those?
Yeah.
Well, I got them from the template, right? So, and I don't know if you can go back to this too and see. I'm going to go back to my maps, and I'll start a new map just for fun. And it doesn't matter to me because I've got a paid account, so I can start as many maps as I can. But you can't, so you need to be able to be a little bit economical with this. But I'm going to go start a new mind map, and I'm going to find the template for it. So on here where it says, where is it? Different places it says. Templates. One of these places.
So you need those for all, like objectives, prereqs,
Yeah.
and notes.
Yeah, so for each one of these lessons that you're planning, these are the things that you have to consider when you're planning a lesson, especially with respect to ICT, right? So objectives, as we said, you're going to have to pick an objective from the Manitoba curriculum based on the grade that you're going to teach and the subject that you're going to teach. And you're going to go to the Manitoba curriculum, K-12 curriculum, and drill down right down to the specific learning objective. As it states in the curriculum, what would you expect to teach in one 50-minute period? So, and most of the time the curriculum's organized like, well, let's go look at it just for fun again too. And I've got, what I did was when I planned my lesson, I made sure that I linked to that specific lesson right in the node of MindMeister. And that's the power of using this tool, is that you can create all these links. So if I go, this is the lesson that I planned for doing a podcast. It was for a grade 12 global issues, citizenship and sustainability course code. But I actually put a link to the, well, I guess that's an old link now. Yeah, somebody changed it. Well, let's just go back. I'll just go back to the Manitoba curriculum, which I have handily put on the top of my blog. I'm going to go into, I forget what was that. That was English. Was it English and creative? Well, it can be anything. So I'll go to English language arts, for example. So, and I want to look at the curriculum documents. So it's on the webpage, Manitoba curriculum documents on the Manitoba education webpage. English language arts. So they go into great detail, and I think probably this English curriculum is the one that just spells out the most information about lesson planning, using the curriculum planning resources for lesson planning. So they got things like here, learning resources, assessments, all those things that might be useful when you're planning a lesson within the English language arts curriculum, but also apply to other lessons that you're going to plan. Okay, so I'll go down here and I'll find, well, let's go find, well, you can see here, you got kindergarten to grade 8, general and specific outcomes, and the outcomes map. Let's go look at that one for fun. So I've got it going by kindergarten grade 8. Here's kindergarten, grade 1, grade 8. Here's by outcomes. Here's the outcome map template. So they've got kind of this all planned too. So when you're planning your lesson, you want to know what position it is in this outcomes map, right? So as we said, we got to decide what your prerequisite is. And you can find that in the Manitoba curriculum map because they got an outcome map. But let's go look at let's go look at a grade 8 English language arts. It's got a PDF, of course. Oh, no, it's a Microsoft Word document. Gross. Why they don't update these, I don't know. But we'll use it. So this is the document that I'm looking at. So grade 8, general outcome 1, GLO, right, is to students will listen, speak, read, write, view, represent, to explore thoughts, ideas, feelings, and experiences. That's a general learning objective. So then once we drill down inside of that, then we're talking about specific learning objectives. So if I'm talking about this particular topic, I could, if I'm planning a lesson for one thing, it could be this one. So then I would identify this by that specific number, specific learning objective number right within the curriculum. And I said it's a professional process. It's a scientific process. They got it all mapped out. They've got a system in mind here. They want to know that you can use this system, right? That's the important thing as a professional teacher. That's the expectation, is that you're able to identify the element of the curriculum that says why you're teaching this. You're not just making it up. You just didn't decide, well, let's go talk about this today. No, that's not what professional teaching is in Manitoba, at least. Might be fun to do, but you're going to get in trouble if you count on doing that on a routine basis. It has to be anchored in the curriculum. So you have to be teaching something in the curriculum. So strolling through, you can see all the different things that you can do. And again, what you're going to decide now is which ICT tool is going to be the most useful for accomplishing this, to teach this one lesson. So for example, in this one, we had, and most of these are, give you a pretty broad latitude in which one you choose to use. So for example, the general outcome is you'll listen, speak, read, write, view, represent, explore thoughts, ideas, feelings, and experiences. So that's pretty broad. But this one, discover and explore, express ideas, explore diverse ideas to help to develop predictions, opinions, conclusions, and understanding. Could you do that in a podcast? Yeah, probably. Could you do it in a collaborative document? Yeah, probably.
When we're doing our lessons,
is
that how we have to have them done in MindMeister?
Yeah, I want them done in MindMeister and drill down specifying that exact learning objective here, right? So that's what I've got here.
Where would you put what you're gonna do during your lesson? Okay, so then that goes into the, as I mentioned, the prerequisites. So where does this fit in the learning objectives map, the path that they, yeah, I'm going to get to that, but I'm explaining all of these things. They're all built into here. The resources are here, so who you need to contact, but then method of instruction is here. So what method of instruction are you going to use? So that's another node within notes. And you can reorganize this a little bit too. Again, this is, you know, these are the major considerations for lesson planning that they've surveyed teachers all around the world. This is what teachers use all the time to plan lessons, but there are some redundancies, some things that, for example, here there's objectives in here. Well, you already stated you already have a complete node for objectives, so you can get rid of that one. So just click on that and just say delete. But yeah, so when we talk about method of instruction, so now you've been taught different things for method of instruction, right? So that acquire, apply, what was the 4 A's or whatever they use in Manitoba, or Brandon actually teaches that as their preferred teaching method, right? Or description of the teaching method. So So include that in there. Then method of evaluation. How are you going to evaluate whether the learning occurred or not? And as I said, often with ICT things, what you can use is a rubric. And we looked at Kathy Schrock's website that had rubrics for everything you could think about related to ICT and using it in the curriculum. So
if we use like a rubric from, say if we use it from that website, you'd have to cite that? Like,
yeah, you actually link it here. You actually put it right here. I think I got this one here.
make like a side note and then add the link.
Add the link right into the node where you've got evaluation. So that's again the power of this MindMeister tool, right? So I can add that link right to that actual tool, right to that actual node, sorry. So then there's never any mistake, although I said there was a mistake here because that node link no longer goes to the appropriate node. So I've got to update that and clean it up. But yeah, those are the main things though. So objectives, what I'm looking for is mostly objectives. Can you nail it down, right down to a specific learning objective? Can you use the ICT continuum to justify why you're using this particular piece of ICT or technique or tool to teach this lesson? So, and when we look at the ICT continuum, of course, it defines all the different reasons why you'd want to use that. And we can go through that too, just quickly again. The ICT continuum, the model is here. Using the continuum itself is this thing. So when you're looking at this thing, it's broken things out into different tasks, right? So not subject specific anymore, now different learning tasks. So the learning task could be question and plan. So if I'm thinking about the ELA class that I just identified down there, is the task what I'm expecting of my students to gather or question and plan? Or is it to gather and make sense? Or is it to produce to show understanding? Or is it to communicate? Or is it to reflect? So these are the areas that the ICT continuum has highlighted as the tasks that you have to be able to accomplish when you're teaching a lesson. And then these across here are all organized almost like that Bloom's taxonomy. You remember what Bloom's taxonomy is? What's Bloom's taxonomy? What does it describe?
Remembering, evaluating.
Yeah, it's trying to give you an idea of when you're planning your lesson, you want to know what your students' capabilities are. What level are you shooting for? So obviously, if you're doing it in grade 1, you're shooting for a basic level of understanding. Whereas if you're doing it for grade 12, then your expectations are going to be higher. So that's what Bloom's taxonomy just sort of gives you a description and an easy way of referencing that notion that you can only expect certain things out of lower levels. As they get more experience, as they become more sophisticated learners, their ability to learn increases, so then you can expect more out of them. So that's what this is kind of set up here to reflect too. So probably if you're planning something for an early years class, you're going to be using these objectives here within. So this Q 1.1. Copy it, pop it into the node, whatever you're looking for. Oh, I better go find my presentation. Well, I don't know why I can't edit from here. Because I'm not in an editable map. I'll go and find that one. I think it's this one. Is it this one? And of course, you can organize these things lots of different ways, however makes sense or looks best to you. What did I say? This was objectives. So under objectives, now this is the ICT objective. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this to ICT continuum. And I'm going to go over here to this little place over here, and I'm going to create a note that goes with that node. I guess I got to remember to take my own advice, so I got to change this or click off before. What's going on? So now I've got that identified, and I'm going to put my note in here. So this is the objective that I got from the ICT continuum. So now when I click here, that's going to show up here. So I highlight it across here. So it tells me that I'm using this objective from the Manitoba curriculum. If I went to this one and changed it to the Manitoba curriculum,
Is it okay if you don't put a note, can you just write it in there?
yeah, you can just write it in there, but it's probably easier and neater, I guess, to put it in a note. So then it's not, because if you put it here, okay, I can do this too because it's already there. I guess I already had one in there
Would
too.
you not put, like what domain it is? What strategy it is? Like I put ICT
Yes,
continuum,
yes.
I put cognitive domain.
Sure. Yeah, that's, but again, this is, yeah, that's what you're aiming for is what, and that's what that chart is sort of built to account for too, right? Is the learning within the cognitive domain. So most of the cognitive domain stuff is from the main curriculum. Most of the affective domain stuff is coming from the ICT continuum. So these things in the ICT continuum are all mostly, if you look at them and think about them, they are affective domain stuff. There's no content in here. It's just what do you expect them to do? So, yeah, they actually used to break this out even deeper than that too, and actually talk about affective domain and cognitive domain, but they kind of, I don't know, updated, I guess, for on an ongoing basis. And then I guess you should also be aware that they are reworking the curriculum right now, right? They've got a big committee meeting and reworking the whole Manitoba curriculum. So you're going to have to make sure you stay up to speed on it. So, yeah. So again, planning lessons and using this tool, that's the habit that I want you guys to get into. Because I said, if you're doing it by hand and put it on scraps of paper and you got binders of paper this big, you're going to be tearing your hair out before you're halfway through your first year. So you need a system and technology. That's why we have technology. And that's why you're taking a course in technology, is because you're going to use technology to teach and you're going to use technology to learn. That's the point. So, and this is all a learning process. Learning how to plan lesson plans, that's a learning process. So. And I can go through this individually with people too, if you want sort of individual coaching on any of these things for sure. So I wanted to do a thing and just give you, what can I do? I want to show you some things about YouTube. And can I take pictures? I'm going to use this to take pictures much, but let's try it. Can you take your videos? Because I want to show you how to do this in YouTube. Hide your face if you want to take a picture. And you won't have to worry about it because I'm going to show you how to use YouTube to hide everybody's face. Okay? Okay. So I made a little video. I'm going to upload it to YouTube. Show it to you right away. Hey, why is it giving me this? Just gonna you. Okay. Gonna go. Okay, let me go see everybody on YouTube. Again, going into my channel. I'm gonna go into find, and it'll take a minute to process. Oh no, there it is already. So here's our class, right?
Because I'm going to show you how to use YouTube to hide everybody's face. Okay.
So actually it's kind of a blurry video already, but that's fine. Go back.
Because I'm going to show you how to use.
Okay, so now edit video. So this is something that you've created, and well, I guess you'll have to wait till your studio is set up to do this. You can do a few things. You used to be able to do a whole bunch more in YouTube videos. Now, I don't know, YouTube has gone to this. They're trying to make a bunch of money off it, like a company would do, a big major corporation would do. So every time they get something going and add a new value or a new feature to it, once everybody's tried it out and perfected it, they turn around and sell it to everybody. So a lot of these video editing features that used to be in YouTube, now they'll sell them to you, or you have to be what they call a professional status somehow, which means that you have to have, I forget how many 100 hours of viewing. You have to have so many followers. You have to be a producer on YouTube to be able to use the sort of advanced editing features. So there's other tools that we can use for editing, but they've left a few things in here. So like things like enhancements. And this is the one I want to look at right now, is this custom blurring.
To hide everybody's face.
So here's our video with everybody's faces showing, and I'm going to click on this and say edit. So now it's going to process this all, and it's going to find faces in this video, processing, and it's going to find all the faces. And if you're using this with kids, of course, that's what you've got to do. If you're taking videos of kids, most of the time under 13, you can't get permission to do it. So you need to blur faces if kids' faces are showing up. Sometimes though, if, for example, in here, if I have permission from some of you, but not permission from others of you, then I can select which one of them. So in this case though, I'm going to select all just because I'm doing a little demonstration. So select all and save this now. So it's gonna blur every face that it sees.
To hide everybody's face. Okay.
So, whoa.
I don't think it's blurred, Albertine.
And I don't know, maybe somewhere behind a video, I think in the back there too, is far enough distant that it's not recognizable. So if it's a recognizable face, it's going to do it. What's going on here now? Oh, I got to save it. So it said it blurred the faces and give me a little demonstration, but I got to save it. Well, here's the other feature while I'm here, is the trim feature. So it's going to show me this whole little video that I've created here now. But you see this little thing down on the bottom here, this little timeline, it's going to let me edit this. So just to pause it. So if I wanted to cut out this part of this, I could just squeeze this over here, squeeze this over here, and all that's going to be left is what's in the middle. So for example, if you're starting a video and it takes a while like me, and I should be going through all my videos and cleaning up all my false starts and that flip, that the starting broadcast page that shows up in all the videos. I didn't do it, but this is how you could do it. You could also split this. So down here is a little split button. So I'm going to find a place in here and I'll split it into two different videos. So one is this part, and I used to be able to actually splice things into this too. I could take a piece of another video and splice it into this here. So, or clear all the trims. So that's what I'm going to do here. And then, well, maybe I'll trim a little bit off of here, this part. So now it's going to take a little while to process this.
Hide everybody's face.
Oh, it did miss Albertine's face. Look at that. Okay, we'll say it's good enough though for the time being. I'm gonna blow it away right away anyway, so. And because this is a pretty short little video, it's not gonna take too long to process.
Because I'm going to show you how to use YouTube to hide everybody's face.
Still processing. Anyway, even while it's processing, I still show the actual video. The processing hasn't occurred yet, but it will. So I can still go in and go into the share video, get my embed code, pop it wherever I want to pop it. So what else can we do with YouTube videos? Well, there's a few things you can do. Edit this video. I'll go back and edit this video again, see some of the other things. You can create advanced settings, they call, as I said, different things here. You can put an ad screen, add a start screen and an end screen. Oh, this one is too short, so it's got to be of a certain length. Change the information and settings about this video so I can make it so that it's private, completely private. Here's the question they asked, do minors appear in this video? Well, then sometimes there's legal obligations when you do this. Do I want to change this and make this into a private or an unlisted one? If it's unlisted, I can send you the link, and as long as you get the link, you can see it. But it's not publicly searchable on YouTube. So, and then if it's private, then nobody can see it, even with the link. Only I can see it. So, and you might do this if you've got say a video embedded someplace for part of the lesson that you're going to teach next week, and you want the video just to show for that period of time. You can set it public there and then go back after and change the status of it so that people can't see it unless you want them to. So what else can you do? Create. If you create, and this is where I used to have, used to have lots of other features in this create version here, but basically all you can do now is add sound effects. So, and they've got a whole bunch of stuff on here too. So if you're doing like a little video presentation of a scene somewhere, you can put some music behind it. Here's the, or schizo, yikes, beach disco. Anyway, so you can customize it a little bit too. You can do some searching for music, and this is all music that is in the public domain so that you can use it. So you're not going to get in trouble. If you ever post something on YouTube and you've used Beyonce's audio, a song from Beyonce or somebody like that, what YouTube does is already detects this that you don't have permission to use that. There's copyright on it. So they're going to kick it off. They're not going to let it display. They're going to send you a warning saying, looks like you violated copyright. Don't do it again. You have a penalty. You have 1 stroke against you. 3 strikes, you're out. So they'll actually suspend your account if you do that on a routine basis. So in this case, if you want to use music to background a YouTube video, no, they've got it here in the Create Studio. They've got described their music policies here too. So a few different things that you can do. Video Manager, of course. Here's all of my videos, what I can do with them. Mostly what I'm interested in doing is finding one, for example, here. Which one could I get rid of? I'll get rid of one here that's, I'll just choose this one. So just click off it and go up in the top here and look at actions. And this is all the different things that you can do with it. And probably the more important one is here, delete. So if you want to get rid of this video, get it out of your, out of your collection, you control it from there, from the Video Manager. In your collection of videos, you can see I've got 43 in here. I should go through and clean them out because most of them are these brief little demo things that yeah, some of them are useful. Some of them are mostly just to demonstrate different concepts. So yeah, so YouTube, always keep track of it because they're always coming up with something different. They're always, lately it seems more like they've been making more features of it restricted, which means you have to go elsewhere for video. One of the popular ones that I like is a video editing feature called VLT. And this is another one of these open source ones like I showed you with Audacity. VLC player. And it's a video management environment where you can do lots of video editing. This is a free one, open source one. Everybody uses it. Sometimes I know lots of people use this just as a video player because it actually works very well as a video player, better than things like the Microsoft player, even the Apple player. So if you click on this, if you've got, you can see the different things that you can do. Another one to get used to. Of course, it'll work on Windows machines. It'll work on any of the major machines with a full-scale operating system. So that's Windows, Mac, or Linux. They're sort of the three main operating systems. Doesn't work so well. I think it maybe actually they're developing apps for mobile that are sort of related to it, but not necessarily full-featured like you get for video editing. The other one that I use for video editing that I actually pay for is a thing called Camtasia. And it looks like this, so you can actually record things in here and go through it and do, here's a timeline similar to what I showed you on Audacity the other day. So I can go down here and makes all sorts of changes, all sorts of edits, cut and paste things, put multiple video clips together. I think I paid $130 for it or something like that, US. So you want to be able to do enough to justify that, or convince your school or school division that you're going to do enough with it to make it worth them paying for it. But it's a full-featured video editor, so not quite as full-featured as something like Adobe Studio, but still enough and easy enough to work that you really don't need to take, a 2-year course in Adobe Studio. Sometimes it seems like you might need to do that. So let's go see if this is done yet. Yeah. So yeah. So it did a reasonably good job of going through. You might have to rework it a few times just to get it to detect faces again too. Anyway, so I'm going to go back and blow it away. Just wanted to demonstrate that. Again, here's this. Go back into my studio, Creator Studio. Go into my video manager. Find that video. Click on it. Click the action, delete it. Permanently delete, yes, you can undo this, it's done, it's gone. Okay, so it's done. So just demonstrating the blurring feature. What else did we want to talk about today? Well, I just kind of was, I guess we should go for our break now, and I just want to sort of go through a few of the theories, again, mostly my theories, and not to say that they're necessarily going to be your theories either. As you plan do your little pedagogy presentation there, some of what I'm telling you might appeal to you and might fit with the way you look at things. On the other hand, some of them might not. So kind of get a chance to look at that. Let's take a break and come back at that. Any questions or comments on stuff so far?
When would be the last day you would take that presentation?
Well, the last day of class supposedly, but as I said, I usually wait. I usually wait until they actually force me to submit them. So the Brandon University policy says 1 week after the end of the course, I have to have my marks in. But I usually try and drag my feet on that too. So you probably got a couple of weeks. But but don't take a couple of weeks. I guess the other thing that's available to you is,
You want your mark, so.
well, yeah, and usually you want your mark right away. In this
Yeah.
course program, you want it
It
right away.
don't matter when it starts.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that makes them, because this isn't prerequisite to anything, so you don't have to worry about getting one. The other thing you can do, if you need more time, is you can get an extension, right? So you can ask me for an extension, I'll give you an extension for however long you want. But, well, you got to apply, but it's got to be at the end of the class, right? I can't give you an extension until it's necessary. You really don't want to do it, because I find that with an extension, people just put it off until the last day, and then it never gets done anyway, so get it done, and I'm gonna make sure that I coach you through, get everybody to the point where I think everybody here already has a passing mark from what I've gone through and looked at.
Oh, okay, well, I'm trying to get it
So-
done today.
Okay, I'm gonna be at the library.
Okay.
We'll work on it. I'll watch the rest of the video.
Okay.
Is that where you're putting yours? Isn't that where we're supposed to put it?
I don't know. Where are we supposed to put our lesson plans? The ones where the grad camp is, or the one we made?
The lessons that you put on your MindMeister map, yeah. Remember what you did on that, is that you went
I'm just, cause there's two of them.
to what? 2 maps?
Yeah. Cause there's this map, right?
Okay, and that's the one you were working on, using to
And
plan your
then
lessons?
here is the other one.
Okay, which one are you working on?
Which one are we supposed to work on this one or on that other one? Either one?
You've got 3 maps that you can use for free in this thing, so, but better to do it all on one map, and it looks like the other one has got the most stuff on it.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and just add it to this one. While you're doing this, let's go and, do you have it already linked on your blog, embedded on your blog?
It's right there.
On your blog?
My blog.
If I go into lesson plans at the top there, what do I see? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. When I go to do an assessment of lesson plans, that's what I'm gonna go look on your blog, on that tab at the top.
Right.
And any changes you make in this plan as you're editing this are gonna show up on your blog once it's,
All right.
once you, so it catches up. It doesn't, you can edit it.
How do we, if what, this, I'm trying to do a map of Canada,
Okay, yeah.
and I wanna save it on my blog.
So what do you mean a map of Canada? Like for a lesson?
For a lesson.
So have you put like points on it and added multimedia to a map? So what's your lesson gonna be about?
It's about, maybe James will, my wife.
Right, okay.
Maybe, no, 2 minutes. 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 Students turn.
Well, either one of those would be fine, and that's
Yeah,
exactly
very,
what it's for.
Probably like this software.
Okay. So recognizing features of the earth, including land and water masses. Supported websites, all that, okay, well, then you can go look at other websites, but for now, go back to your map.
So these are my model students distinguish the color of the land and water masses.
Okay. Okay, so,
But if you just read through
that's, I don't know, it sounds like that's actually crayon, pencil crayons. I don't know, there's probably ways you could do it in the
here's the best part, somebody feels that.
or other resources, you might have to do research on that, but it's probably possible.
Did you take that last year?
What is this?
Sure, okay. Okay, so down there you see the actual outcomes, the learning objective activities, 001. That's what you need. And then when you're making a map, go back up to your Google Maps there, so what can you do? Drop a pin in each one of the provinces. So you go in, and then you can go to my places, your places, and service. And go to maps. Now, I don't know which one you're working on. You got a bunch of them there, you got 6 different maps called Untitled Map, which is why I said you should always give these a title, but.
But this one, I wanna put this one in my maps.
Okay,
This one here.
okay, so you're gonna have to actually create a map. So,
Create a map.
create a map. Now, where it says Untitled Map, change this to lesson. Maps lesson, and whatever, you identify it by map of Canada, or you can identify it by the specific learning objective. If you're gonna use maps for a bunch of different things, well, then you might wanna identify your maps that way, but. So in the description, you need to just put that in there.
I have to find that out.
Sure, yeah, I think it was K, what did they say, K0. Should be able to find it in your mind map. Where you're planning your lesson.
I didn't even put it on there.
Okay. But that's it, okay, so then go back to your map. Okay, sure.
KC0.
And the other what you can do is you can take a picture of that.
Take a picture of this.
Yeah. Screenshot. So just on your computer, go to print screen. So here's a button called print screen. And usually I'll just take a screenshot.
Is it already?
I don't know.
How do I know? How do I check?
Then your pictures if you do. Folder zeroed up. Folder figure. Yeah, pictures. See pictures. Or you can go into, there's probably a few different ways to do it. You can grab the link now. Just grab the link to this page.
This one here?
Yeah.
Copy.
Yeah. And you can put it on, yeah, put it there for sure.
Put it in here.
Lesson plan.
Just put it in there for now.
Well, on the objective, right? So you're working on objectives?
So it's right here.
Sure. Okay, well, yeah, you could do that. Sure.
Controls.
Well, just wait, you're gonna have to put something first. So just write objective. This is going to be maps project. Okay, so now we're on, put your tab here, that thing, that's great. So now go down, yeah, so it says link. Okay, just control V there. You click on the maps on there anywhere? No. Yeah, anywhere you want them, and we'll do it. Now that link is right there.
This one here?
Yeah, so as soon as you want to find that again, it's built right into your lesson.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So
Okay.
is that where my
Okay, now, so now you're just gonna find some pins to draw. Provinces, or what are you gonna learn? Capital cities, or provinces, okay, so just drop a pin in each one of the provinces and label it as a province, right?
Okay, do you want this on here or
Yeah.
on our blog?
Well, I want it on there. Go back to that thing.
Oh, to my.
Yeah, so if you publish this, you go to share. And publish that. Okay, so now this is done now. You can make some adjustments on there, but we're not just going to get that code.
Like I'm not done it yet.
That's fine. No, it'll update. So when you embed it on, the more important thing is you get it embedded on your blog. So I've got something to see.
Okay.
Yeah, and then go back to your blog. And then page and page.
Okay.
New page. Call this lesson plans. And then switch to from there. And go back to the blog again and click that, select that one.
Oh,
So you can use two dots. Now, when I go to look for, do the assessment again, that's what I'm gonna look for first, and then the lesson plans. And look at what you've got in there, run your lessons. And then I'm gonna look for exemplars and pages across the top of that blog too. So your video example, your podcast example.
will be in here.
There'll be another page along the top of the blog.
Okay, because like, for example, I did like my Google Maps.
Okay, sure.
When I pasted it right in here,
Sure.
because like, for example, I did,
That's fine, but still, grab it and embed it on the page in the blog.
oh. No, I don't wanna do this, right? I
Is
wanna
that
grab
doing
that book. Yeah, but
That's
it
your
only zooms in,
Well, that's fine.
like, okay, so,
So we have to go actually into the
Wait, it's
maps.
here.
That's it. You can open the maps, yeah. So
It's here, okay.
share. Make it public, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
good, okay, go back now, and these are the three dots there.
oh, yeah,
And
okay.
then put that on the page on the top of your blog too, just so I can be consistent. I can find everything. It's already there.
Did I need a walk?
Okay, what you can do is put a few on there too, and then just add it as you go along.
Okay, so this is my one,
That's
because
the
the
page.
students are gonna, You have to help create it, right? So it's kind of used as a collaborative tool in that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's just like the one
Yeah.
pin, but it's
Yeah.
still like the
Sure.
whole lesson plan and everything.
Yes, and that's a great collaborative project too.
Yeah, I'm
You
reading
know, use a map.
so far.
As I said, lots of these things cross over. You can use a map to do just about everything, so.
So is this kind of what you, so like, I don't know where you found like all of those, but I.
That was on that template, that was on the template, the MindMaster template. When you started a new map, they offered you to use a template,
Oh, yeah.
and, but you got it, that's all the template was those 4 elements, right? The objectives, prerequisites, notes, and resources.
Right.
And then within those, they have other things.
So I typed them all out,
Yeah,
so now it's
that's
just a
fine.
matter of,
Just fill them in, yeah.
okay.
So for example, to use this for a maps lesson, what would you need? Resources. Your students would have to have access to a lab, Google accounts, have all the permissions that are necessary for that.
So materials, use of the computer and the internet, Google Maps.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, and then the people resources, yeah, they got permission. You got permission from your principal, have you got permission from your IT guys, have you got permission from the parents, and do all this stuff. All these things that you have to consider before you're gonna do something like this.
Oh, okay, okay.
Now,
Okay.
So sometimes it's gonna be all the same, but you need to think about it, and you need to consider it for sure.
Okay, I wanted to see if I was on the right track with my,
Oh, good.
okay, I put that
Perfect.
there,
Nice.
but my philosophy is here. And then,
Are you
That's
something?
a personal philosophy.
yeah,
What I'm looking more for is sort of a theory based.
okay,
Now, is that from a theory of some sort?
no,
Okay, so that's what.
but connective, but I'm
Okay, sure.
including that in here,
Yeah.
and I found, this one on,
Right, good, perfect.
on that Google Scholar, that's where I'm at.
Sure, good, perfect. How many slides do you have?
9 so far,
Okay.
but these would take more than 20 seconds to.
Yeah, so then you want to split them into more
Yeah.
slides.
I just wanted to see, but if I find more theories, like I said, I couldn't.
Well, I'm gonna talk about a few here now, we'll talk about a few more too, some that might appeal to you, and I put them on my blog for today.
Okay, can I go follow you at home?
Sure.
Okay.
You can watch it on the video later too if you want, so.
I just wanted to see if I was on the right track here.
Yeah, no, you're doing good there. I was looking at your stuff before too,
Oh,
so.
did you,
it's-
okay.
Yeah,
And you found everything that?
yep, so far so good. So, before we're done, I'll make sure that I go through with you and
Yeah,
make
and
sure
this
you're
one too, I made a new page on, new pages.
on the top. Good, okay, good, sounds good.
However you see. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Liz showed up, I better mark her present. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few other theories too, and sort of mention why I thought these theories are useful and why I sort of subscribe to them. I like this idea of connectivism. I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years, right? The early theories that I used, yeah, some of them still work. I mentioned one of them was called situated learning, which is like apprenticeship, which means you only learn when you're in a community of people who know the stuff, know what you're trying to learn. And if you think about just about any job you've ever had, it's been a process of apprenticeship, whether that was making cakes or baking bread or quilting or working in a construction job or just about anything you did, you had to watch somebody that already knew it. And usually the first thing that happens, they said, okay, you're on the job here, it's okay for you to be here, but just sit over there, shut up, don't do anything, don't touch anything. So that's what they call a legitimate peripheral participant. So you're okay to be there, but don't do anything. You're just sort of peripheral. You're on the periphery of it. So it's okay for you to be there. So, and if you're a candidate for that, well, then they'll start talking about the job that they're doing. If you're not
part of that circle, well, they won't talk about the job that they're doing. So if they're firefighters or computer repairmen or something like that, if they got somebody that's not in the group, they won't talk about the job the same way. But if everybody in that going for coffee is in that group, even if they're just beginning on there, they'll start using the language, and that's what you have to learn how to do, is use the language. So that was called a theory called situated learning, and that's, I mean, it's an ancient apprenticeship system. They started studying it. The first thing they studied was midwives, how midwives in Africa learn their job. So if you're a new person who wants to be a midwife, how do you learn? Well, you learn by being a legitimate peripheral participant. You go along and watch and shut up and pay attention. Don't do anything. And gradually they start giving you little jobs to do. Hold this, look at this, go get that. So then you become responsible for a minor part of the performance as you go along. So their claim, of course, was that all learning was a process of apprenticeship. And if you think about it, most things you do, even lawyers, for example, you're a new lawyer, you're going on the job, you got your new law degree. What's the first thing they say? Well, just a minute, sit down. What they taught you in school is great, that's fine, but just wait. We do things differently here. So you got to be apprenticed. You got to fit into the process. So that's a pretty powerful model of learning, teaching and learning that still really actually is in effect no matter what. And it doesn't matter whether that's a formal part of learning. Usually when you get on the job, that's the way it actually works out. So they call that situated learning. And that was I kind of still subscribe to that one. One of the earliest theories that as I said, I discovered and subscribed to, and if you had to ask me about my theory that was one of the first ones that I could relate to. Of course, then, as I said, when they started introducing information and communication technology, computers started coming on the scene. In education and in society in general, that changed everything. I mean, you're all probably young enough here, you probably don't remember a time when there wasn't TVs. I'm old enough. I was born in 1955, so I remember when we got our first TV, before there was even TVs available. I remember the first TV coming along. Well, that changed everything. That changed everything. Now we watched Tommy Hunter, we watched Hockey Night in Canada, we watched, all these shows on TV where, before all you could do is listen to it on the radio. So, and of course that had a big revolutionary effect on society when TVs first came around. And there's a guy at the University of Toronto, Marshall McLuhan was his name. And he did a whole bunch of theorizing about that now, what the effect of that was on society. And he came up with a couple of notions that are still long lasting. One was that we live in a global village, that now anything that happens here also affects everything around the world because we communicate so quickly. Used to be before, if you wanted to communicate something, it had to go on a telegraph or it had to go on a package. You had to send it in a mail or a newspaper or something like that. Now it's instantly transmitted. So that means that I can know what's going on in China right now. And this is before even the internet was there. The TV gave us that window into it. So claimed we lived in a global village. He also claimed that the medium was the message. That's one of the things that he sort of remembered for. So if you're trying to transmit a message, it depended what medium you used. He said if you use radio, that tells you one thing. If you use television, that uses another thing. If you use print media, the message is also embedded in the way that the message is delivered. So he's kind of a clever devil, and he still inspires lots of. And of course, when the computers came along, he was still in business and still theorizing. And of course, his theories actually still hold water. They still actually do pretty good. So one of them I mentioned before was a guy by the name of Mark Fetterman. He had this UCAP model of what was that? Universally connected, pervasively proximal. So he's describing a world wherein we all have one of these things: connection to the internet, connection to all the information basically that's available in the whole world. Well, that's changed everything again. But of course, some of McLuhan's theories, some elements of that theory still held up. So the one that I probably more, well, okay, I'll go back and one of them that I studied again was this pedagogy of the oppressed. And there's this guy by the name of Paulo Freire, who was an educator in Central America when all that crap was going on, when the Americans were trying to do all these nefarious deeds and take over everything and boss everybody around and kill people and sell drugs to make arms deals in Iran and all this stuff. So that time, anyway, he came up with this theory is that the pedagogy, most of the pedagogy that was available at the time, which was the classic Western pedagogy, was designed to actually oppress people, trying to keep people under control, so that they don't get too smart. They only get smart enough. And we looked at that Sugata Mitra video. He was talking about how the British Empire used to try and control things with their colonialist approach. It was all about control, and that's what Freire pointed out, is that if your education, your main purpose of your education is control, that's going to dictate what kind of education you have. So he suggested that people aren't piggy banks that need to be filled up with little control ideas. People need to be encouraged to choose their own learning and become co-creators, as he described them, in their own learning. So when you're learning something, you have to have the consent of the people that you're educating. So sometimes that consent is implied. Sometimes I think still in our system, in our education system, it's very oppressive. And I mean, that's certainly an issue that's come up to the fore about, residential schools issues, right? Well, that was pure colonialist control and had lasting horrible effects on lots of different people, generations of people. So if you hear some of the discussions about truth and reconciliation now, I'm talking about trying to correct some of the errors of the residential school era. One of the theorists that will quite often pop up is this Paulo Freire, and the discussion is this pedagogy of oppressed, and the ways that he developed to work around it in Central America. Oops. I accidentally touched this thing and it leapt into life. And it's kind of interesting. He had a couple of really interesting ideas. One that still appeals to me. One was, he said, we make the road by walking. So he was describing things like in an African village. How do you make a road? How do you decide where the road goes? Well, it goes where the people go, where the people want to go. You look around here, and this has actually been incorporated into architecture and design considerations. So if you've got to build a brand new campus, where do we put the sidewalks? Well, do I decide where the sidewalks go, or do I put the sidewalks where the people go? So his idea was that you make the road by walking. So if you're building your own learning, you're building your own education, you do it by walking, by where do you go? Where do you want to go? So it's all ownership was the issue. Going from there, of course, we went on to things like transformative learning, which is another one. A guy by the name of Mirazal came up with this idea that learning is actually a transformational process. And to do it, we've got to challenge our assumptions about things. And he described a thing called unsettling dilemmas, or disturbing dilemmas, disorienting dilemmas. So when you're trying to learn something, you examine what you already know about it, and somebody introduces a contradiction. Well, that's a dilemma. Now I've got to decide how I think about this thing. What I thought I believed before is no longer maybe necessarily true, so I might have to change things. Well, that's what he said was the process of learning. That's how we learn, is by being confronted by these disorienting dilemmas and having to examine our belief systems and change them. So maybe not always necessarily about some technical topics or technical subject areas, but anything certainly to do with social areas and personal development. This transformative learning theory is still a very powerful and popular theory. And that still applies even in the era of ICT as well. So one of the things that I remember doing was this idea that you've got to steal your job. I was teaching. I did a project where we're helping them set up vocational technical schools in Romania. When Romania was trying to join the European Union, they had to do a bunch of things. And they'd always sort of counted on the Soviet Union for all their technical training. The army did most of their training, including, gas fitters. And one of the things that they had to do when they wanted to join the European Union is they had to cut their coal emissions. So they had to switch over to be gas-fired rather than coal burning. Well, that was fine, except they didn't really have anybody that knew how to do that. They didn't really even have a system of technical training to train people how to do that because the Soviets had already done it. So we were there with the World Bank project and setting up this whole process for training people how to become tradespeople so that they could do conversion from coal-fired to gas. So, anyway, it was a very interesting project. Worked good. Eventually, Romania upgraded all their education systems, trained enough technical people that they satisfied the European Union and got membership in the European Union. That's 2011, I think, is when that happened. So, anyway, one of the things that we were talking about, and I was talking with the educators there about how they did training at the time, and it was kind of that apprenticeship model that I mentioned before, but with a little bit of a slant to it. So one of the things they observed was that people that already know the trade or the business or the skill or whatever, they don't want anybody else to know. Because if I teach you, then I'm no longer worth as much, right? So they were reluctant to teach people. So if you wanted to learn something, they said you had to steal your job. So you had to watch the guy that knew and steal your job from him because he doesn't want to show you. In fact, when he does his work here and you're standing there watching, what's he going to do? He's going to do this and make sure you don't see it. So if you really want to learn something, you're going to have to be committed, and it's going to be something that you really want. So contrast that to the education that we have here, where it's basically given to us no matter what. We obviously have to try and force it on people. Doesn't work quite as potently as if I have to steal my information. So if I get this sense that, and you've seen this with kids too, yeah, no, get away, I'm not going to show you. Never mind, go over there, stand away, don't watch. Well, what are they going to do? The first thing they're going to do, they're going to be all over you. So you got to build this into your teaching strategy, teaching practice a little bit too. It's the thing that I call salting the oats. Anybody heard that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Heard that saying? Well, how do you get it to drink? Make it thirsty. Put salt in his oats. And if anybody's ever had horses and treated horses, you got a sick horse that needs to drink. How do you get them to drink? Put salt in their oats. So it's the same thing for education. If you want your people your students to learn, maybe you shouldn't be quite so keen on dishing everything up. You just want to get them curious. And that's what we're talking about in our lesson planning theory. One of the things that was the setting the context, setting the hook. How do you get people engaged in and committed into their own learning? So challenging sometimes. So then came to now more current theories, and this one, the connectivism one, is still the one that I sort of subscribe to the strongest, and that seems to be the one that has the most power to explain what's going on now when we have computers and social media networks. And this theory, of course, says that learning and ask the question first of all, where does learning occur? Where does learning happen? So if I'm going to do a learning intervention, what am I targeting? Someplace in the middle of my brain? Your brain? Well, maybe, I don't know. They haven't had much luck digging into anybody's brain so far and figuring out exactly where learning occurs. Not even sure if it all really occurs in the brain. We know a lot of the emotional learning that we do is probably more in our guts than in our brains. So we know that if I am in an anxious state, for example, it affects my whole physiology, including my guts. That then in turn sends a message to my brain, which does an emotional interpretation of things. So yeah, we can't say the learning occurs in any one given spot in the physical body. We kind of think there might be some connection between neurons and the brain cells and the different areas of our brain. We think learning probably occurs as a consequence of, I don't know, building a bunch of neuronal connections and connecting different parts of our brain. Sounds good, but we're really not sure that that's altogether the full explanation yet either. What these guys are saying, well then, what it looks like though is that learning occurs not just inside of ourselves, but also in the networks that we establish. So my learning is part of what's in my head, but it's also nowadays partly in my networks. So whether that's my Facebook network or my Twitter network or my email network of people that I'm connected to who are interested in the same things, particularly with respect to education, of course. We got a big network that I spent years building, connections between people. So now that if I have a question about something, if I'm curious about something, I want to learn something, I don't have to know who to ask, because I just ask my network. And if I've built my network properly, the person in my network that knows responds. And similarly, if I'm, going along participating in my network, and somebody asks a question that I know something about, I reciprocate. So that whole process of learning now is, getting a certain amount of content area, but also, more importantly, building networks. And again, that's always sort of been the way things happen in the real world too. You build your networks. It's who you know, right? You know that story. So in this case, of course, using web-based resources, online resources, the who you know can be the whole world. It could be the guy in Australia. It could be the guy in China who, in fact, as I'm describing my current situation, if I want to know something about some operating systems, there's a guy I know in China that I've been involved with in other courses and programs where I've taught him stuff. Now, if I ever have a question, I can ask him, and he's on Skype, he's on YouTube, he's on all the same social media channels that I'm on, and monitoring at all times. Same with Australia. I got a guy that teaches in northern Australia, Northern Territory Aboriginal Community College in Northern Australia, who's a computer wizard, knows anything that I want to know. And he's also very familiar about using computer systems in remote communities where, sometimes the technology isn't as robust. Sometimes the networks aren't as strong. So he's, over the course of years, worked out all sorts of little workarounds. If there's ever a technology glitch that I know as a result of being, in a remote community or where there's a technological challenge with some guy, I ask him, and he responds instantly, and usually comes up with an answer. And if he doesn't know, he refers me to somebody else on his network. So he allows me to extend my network. So my whole process of learning for this ICT stuff mostly has been a process of building networks, learning who knows what, so that when I need to have a question, I don't really even need to know who to ask. As I said, I just ask my network, and all the people that are monitoring this network, they're doing the same as me. They supply the answer if they've got it. So it's a reciprocal arrangement, reciprocal relationship, and it basically describes what connectivism is. So then learning in that type of an environment is how do you build that network? And one of the things that they talk about in connectivism is this personal learning environment. So my learning environment includes all of these social media networks. Twitter is a pretty strong one for me, and I've cultivated my Twitter network to be specific to educators, although I have another part on there that I'm interested in politics, of course, and I raise crap on there all the time about politics. Facebook is the same. I use Facebook probably more for family, but I've got lots of connections on Facebook that are strictly related to education. So when I did my doctorate, all of my group were all on Facebook. We created our own Facebook group, so we still have ongoing conversations there too. Skype, use Skype lots and Skype groups. So I described before, when I was teaching doctoral level, teaching research methodology at doctoral level, I had different groups, and that's what we used was Skype. And we still keep in touch in there. Conversations have been going for 5 years and still pops up every once in a while. How's it going? Or have you read this? Or what do you think about this? There's always a conversation going on. So that's one of the reasons why this connectivism appeals to me so much, because I recognize it. It's what I'm doing, And of course, what they've done, one of the ways that they first tried to demonstrate this or model this connectivist learning was they had a process called a MOOC. Anybody ever heard of a MOOC? What's a MOOC? It's a massively open online course. So these are courses that were delivered online where you could participate however you wanted to. So if you wanted to participate using Facebook, if you wanted to use it, I use Second Life for one of them, one of the initial ones, when they were first trying to understand and determine whether connectivism was actually a theory or not, and that was about 2008, they offered this MOOC, massively open online course. And I think there's like 2,500 people that got involved in it. And it was started out of the University of Manitoba, and they had a Moodle environment that they could use on there. So you were welcome to participate in this open course using their Moodle, but you also had the choice of using whatever you wanted. So there was conversations going on there, as I said, within Skype, within Twitter, within Moodle. Lots of it happened within Moodle, and that seemed to be one of the central repositories. But Second Life was another environment. People used all sorts of different ways to connect and build connections and basically demonstrate that the theory was correct and was useful. So they described this idea of you develop your own personal learning environment. So if you subscribe to the idea of connectivism, you subscribe to this idea of using a personal learning environment, building your own system out of tools that are easily available. And one of the differences is some institutions, of course, tried to co-opt this and adopt it right away. And they said, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we can make some money off this thing. So then they started making MOOCs that were, you had to subscribe to them and pay money to get into them. So that was kind of not really the idea of the MOOC in the original format. So they would use things like Moodle. How many have used Moodle here? You use Moodle? Yeah, so, I mean, it's okay. It's a useful thing, but who owns Moodle? Do you own Moodle?
No.
Do you even own the version of Moodle that you're using? Oh, it belongs to BU, right? What happens when you no longer pay tuition to BU? What happens to all the stuff that you've done in Moodle? Done. Well, you don't have access to it anymore. So it might be what they call a personalized learning environment. So it's personalized to you. You can use Moodle the way sort of you want it within the constraints, depends how your profs are using it. But it belongs to the institution, and it belongs to the content belongs to the prof. So if I've done some bunch of work in my learning to build my, I've been paid a tuition to a course and I've done all this work, where does it go? Unless I've saved a copy of it, if I just do it within the learning management system, it stays with the institution. So once I'm done, it's gone. It's no longer available to me. I hate that. I hate that idea. So I want my learning. If I've done something to demonstrate my learning, I want to own that. So that's what they talk about, a personal learning environment. So that's why I like Google, obviously, because it's my own. Well, Google owns the whole thing, but nobody restricts my access to the things that I've created in my Google account. So that's the difference between doing things in a personal learning environment as opposed to something that's within what they call a walled garden. So the Moodle, for example, Brandon University's Moodle would be considered a walled garden because you got to pay to get past the wall. Once you're in, well, then you can use everything. Once you no longer pay, you're locked out of the garden. Whereas if you create your own resources and use your own digital environments, online environments, networks, then that's yours. You have ownership over that. And again, as I said, for me, that's one of the chief concerns. When I'm trying to teach people, I really want them to be able to develop their own personal learning environment. And that's what you've all been doing here too, is developing the basic set of tools to operate your own personal learning environment. So now it doesn't belong to me, doesn't belong to BU, it belongs to you, well, you and Google. But Google's going to let you use it for as long as they want to. So whatever you've created for this class doesn't stay with me, goes with you. So your blog is yours, and you can use that however you want. You can keep using it forever, you can blow it away. So it's your personalized, not personalized, personal learning environment. It's something that you've created. I've sort of given you some guidance and showed you how to do it and given you some suggestions, but it's still up to you. Same with the MindMeister map. Well, I kind of give you some guidelines and modeled using it for lesson planning, but it's still yours. That's still your MindMeister account. It's not mine. So you can use that however you want. If you decide to use it for lesson planning, good. Well, I would say that something good is rubbed off on you from this class, because they work systematic and you own it. So it doesn't matter if you are working with this school division now and 10 years from now you work for another school division, that stuff is still all yours. It's not locked in some school division server. It's not stuck in the university server. It's yours. You own it. So, and for me, that's critically important. I want to be able to have ownership of my learning. I want to be able to keep learning and keep adding to the resources that I've built. So my personal learning environment is continually expanding. I'm always learning stuff and I'm always contributing to it. So Zotero for me is another big one. And you saw all the resources that I've got in Zotero. I just keep adding to that all the time. I'm interested in a bunch of topics, say digital humanities or digital journalism or ICT and education. So you saw all the different groups that I belong to where I'm adding to the Zotero resources and the shared communities that I belong to there. So there's more sort of concepts related to learning that we have to consider when we start talking about education. Some of the changes that technology is bringing. Some of them we're not even really sure about because they're emerging right before our very eyes, right? So artificial intelligence. What's artificial intelligence? Robots usually, but they're not the robots. They're digital robots, right? They're programs, algorithms that are designed to do things. Some of them actually have sort of a physical manifestation. They look like a real person, but they're a computer. Taking over the world. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. That sounds too dire. But we are depending on them more and more all the time, right? So, and they're getting more sophisticated all the time too. As I described before, we have an artificial intelligence built within Google Documents, such that if I speak into a Google document, it hears what I say and types it for me. So that's an artificial intelligence. And there's more and more of those all the time. So how's that going to change learning, teaching and learning? So now I'm going to have to collaborate and cooperate and get along with artificial intelligence. And that's one of the big questions, of course, too. Now, once the robots get smart enough, are they going to put up with our crap anymore? They're watching us destroy the earth. They're saying, these humans, it might be better if we kind of put them all in a little room and just let them kill themselves over there and let the rest of the world go good, So these are some of the big challenges that we're talking about when we talk about societies now where we have this huge dependence on technology. Will we be ruled by robots? Will the robots be sympathetic to us? Maybe. Then again, maybe depending on what we deserve, maybe not. One of the big ideas again that's coming along is this idea of singularity. Anybody heard that term before? It was on the test the other day. Kind of left it in there because singularity. So this is this point where somebody's projecting, a guy by the name of Ray Kurzweil, actually, and he's a Google engineer. And he's been a guy that's written all sorts of books about the future. And he's predicting things. He's like Nostradamus. He's predicting the future. But he's been very accurate, very correct. One of his ideas is that we're going to come to a certain point in time where our computers, our artificial intelligences are going to be indistinguishable from human intelligence. And in fact, we're going to come to a point where our intelligence or our consciousness will be able to download that and upload it into something else. And he says, well, at that point, then, of course, we have the potential to live forever, right? So I take my consciousness, download it into something, a younger, slimmer, handsomer version of me that's going to live for however long. And it's going to live that long because I've developed the capacity to change all my defective parts. When my heart wears out, they could easily build me a new one, or change the whole carcass. So he said at that point, that's going to be what he called the singularity. The singularity event is when artificial intelligence is indistinguishable from human intelligence. And he forecast that it's going to be something like 2045, maybe even starting in 2030. And we see evidence of it already all around, where, for example, in medicine, you can actually grow your own parts for some things. So I was just watching something the other day. Guy was growing his own esophagus. He had a cancer and had his esophagus cut out. Well, you could have got a transplant from a cadaver, but what they did was, and they took a transplant from a cadaver, but they dissolved all the material off and just left the ligaments and the matrix to it, and then took stem cells from him and grew his own esophagus, basically, and then spliced it in there. So he basically grew his own parts in a petri dish. And that's just coming on. They're doing it with hearts in animals already. That sort of thing is coming already. So the intersection between technology, biotechnology, nanotechnology, all these things are having huge, profound effects on all sorts of things. So anyway, this Ray Kurzweil, I think he's 70 years old now, and he's really hoping to make it to the singularity. So he's come up with this scheme for diet and vitamins and things and practices, exercise, and he's turned this into a whole big industry to extend his life so that he's still alive by the time the singularity comes. And he figures if he's still alive by singularity, then he can live forever. Good plan, dude. Lots of other people think that's true too. In fact, the university, there's a university they've started in California called the Singularity University, only eligible for the smartest people in the whole world. So if you have a genius level, you can apply to go and study at this Singularity University, and that's what they're studying. What's going to happen to society when we get to this point? How is that going to affect society? How can we make sure that it's being directed in a positive direction? And fascinating process. How can we make sure that the artificial intelligences we develop are friendly to us and serve us properly? Anybody ever heard of the trolley problem? Anybody watch the Good Place on Netflix? Good show. What's her name? Kristen Bell is the main actress in it, and it's a show about this so-called good place. And there's a guy, one of the characters in there is a philosopher, and he's talking about this trolley problem. And this is a problem of ethics that they've used for a long time when they introduced it. So you're driving down a train track. You're on a train, and you see on one branch of this track there's 5 people that are going to get killed because the train is going that way. Or if you pull a switch and you turn over here, there's 1 person going to get killed. What do? What's the right thing to do? What's the ethical thing to do? Kill 5 or kill 1? What's the right thing to do? So here's the switches in your hand. What are you going to do?
All 6. Just kidding.
Uh,
It's the one.
Yeah, so, but does that change though if the one over there is an old fat guy like me and all the other ones over here are kids? Then what? Or if the one over there is a kid and they're all old fat guys over there like me over there, does that affect your choices?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Kidding.
No, but I mean, this is the challenge in this whole little project. How do you make those ethical decisions? How do you make those choices? And the problem is that humans don't do it very good even now. So how are we supposed to teach machines to do it? So if we can't really make our choices, and this is actually a problem right now. They've got these self-driving cars, right? You've heard of a self-driving car? How do you program that to do it? And they've come up with issues already. It says driving down the street, and one time it mistook a woman on a bicycle for a plastic bag, and ignored her and just smucked her. So they dismissed the car, the self-driving car, dismissed this because they thought it was an artifact. They thought it was a plastic bag blowing across, when actually it was a person on a bicycle. Killed it. So how do you program that into your car to pay attention? What are they supposed to pay attention to? How do they make the choice too then? The other thing is, if I spent, $150,000 in the latest Mercedes-Benz sedan high-end car with this computer intelligence in it, what do I want it to do? When it's driving down the street and it sees the option of either hitting a woman pushing a stroller or hitting a bridge button and killing me and wrecking my car, what's my car going to do? What have I programmed my car to do? Probably kill the woman and the kid in the stroller, right? Save my car, my $150,000 car, and me. So how do we ethically program our machines when we're really not even that ethical? Our best estheticians can't figure that out, how to make proper choices. So we got some real challenges, and that's what that Singularity University is all about too. It's trying to sort all these things out, sort out these ideas. So that means we need a next generation of people to be pretty sharp about stuff, to be able to think critically, to understand technology, understand the potential of technology, but also the risks and the limits of technology. And that comes only from you guys, right? You're teaching the next generation of people who, as I said before, I was asking you to think about when your first class graduates. When you start teaching now with your new teaching certificate, the first class you teach, when are they going to graduate and be mature adults? So it's probably going to be around 2030, 2035, right? What's the world going to be like then? We have no idea. So we can't be preparing them for the world that we used to know. And we can't even be preparing for the world as it exists right now, because we know that's changing fast. So we got to try and prepare them for the world that's going to come. So how do you do that? How do you future-proof people? Well, yeah, they still need to know the curriculum stuff, but now more importantly, they need to know how to learn. And that's your job, that's your role, is you're teaching people how to learn. And you're doing it by demonstrating, modeling your own learning as you go along. Recognizing that, what we know now is going to change. I have to be able to examine what I know and be ready to change it, because it's all happening fast. So anyway, I tried to list on here some of the things about essential qualities of good teachers. And I guess we're getting close to the time here, but I suggest, and you can consider these too, and you can put this into when you're doing your presentation, figuring out your pedagogy. I would suggest that good teaching can be learned. You can be taught how to do that. Mostly good teaching is a question of attitude. Are you able to be a responsible, reliable teacher? Can you model learning? Can you teach people how to learn? Not just stuff. Can you teach them how to learn? Can you teach them how to teach themselves? That's the critical skill. Can you model good learning strategies? Fearless learning strategies. And that's a big challenge, because change is a tough thing. We don't like change very much. We like to get a certain understanding of the way the world works, and then we want to keep working that way. Even though it changes, we don't respond very well to change, unless we've been trained to do that. So welcoming change, of course, is one of the challenges that we have. Fearless, curious, committed, I would suggest. So those are features of teaching. Good teachers that I would suggest are important. You might come up with something different. I'd say fearless is probably the most important one. They describe a few things like learning is important for sure, but maybe unlearning and relearning are just as important. So I learned all this stuff in a certain way, but now everything's changed. So I'm going to have to unlearn that first before I can relearn new things. And that's a whole other set of learning skills too, that I have to be able to develop, and I have to be able to use, and I have to be able to model to my students, the people that I'm teaching. So like you guys, in other words. Well, I don't know. Think about that. Build these into your pedagogy and do a little bit more research on all these things. I've actually tried to put some of the links up on the Zotero group again into the pedagogy section or the theories section. Again, I'm asking you to consider what's your philosophy of teaching and how does it incorporate technology, ICT. So, hey, let's wrap it up here for the day. Anybody got any questions about that? Comments? Think about it. We'll open this up a little bit more tomorrow too. So for the next couple of days, mostly what I want to do is get everybody into a position where they feel comfortable that they've done the work that they need for this class, and I'll probably talk about a few more things and interviews a few more things, but mostly it'll be just kind of wrapping up and getting things where we need them to be. So I'll stick around now tonight if anybody wants specific help with anything, and I'm still available on office hours from 1 to 4. I had it on the.
Can I make an appointment?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. You know how to do it? Go on there, book an appointment. Do it. It actually works pretty good. And one of the reasons why I want you to do that is just to see how it works. Because you can do the same thing for when you're using it. It's just a Google Calendar feature. Schedule an appointment in a Google Calendar, free Google Calendar. Yeah. So here's what it shows up for me. Shows up that
Where?
Skype. Well, usually Skype, yeah. So I don't really come here until 5 o'clock every day, so I don't really have an office that I can use very well. So
Go to Skype.
Sure.
Skype for an interview.
Sure.
Can I show you what I've got so far for my
Sure.
presentation, and then you can tell me if I'm on the right track.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. So I started. And then, yeah, and then taking the class on,
sure.
really. So I've got my intro, and then I've kind of discussed a few of the teaching styles that I like, so. And then I just go into, that, and then I discuss
Right.
all my,
Perfect.
all the different.
And of course now how ICT connects to that, right?
Right, okay,
perfect.
okay, so then I'll do, okay,
Yeah, got 20 slides?
I'm working on it,
Okay, good. No,
but
that's
yeah, it's.
that's perfect.
Okay,
And that's what I'm hoping you're gonna do, is you're gonna think about what is my scientific approach to teaching here? And how does technology fit into that? I know mostly here, they probably mostly focus on not technology teaching, right? So the job is gonna be technology. Did you make one? You make one?
no.
Oh. Well, like I said, I'll stick around to 7:30 now, and then tomorrow we'll probably, again, just have a sort of a shorter day, but then most of the individual coaching tomorrow too. So if we can't fit it into class, well, we can still make an appointment for sure. Okay, good. And hopefully by tomorrow, your YouTube accounts will be up and running, and we'll fool around with that, get you to create something, create a little hangout and store it on YouTube and see what the steps are and how you can create one yourself. So. Curious to see if my thing is still broadcasting. I don't know if anybody's watching this online here. Lily, did it work, Lily? Text me and Skype, did it work? Albertine was watching online too. Somebody. Anybody out there? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna shut that down anyways, and I'll post it on there. Where is it? Stop broadcast.